This is TWiT.
Holy cow. What a year this has been for Microsoft already. Soloragate, and now whatever this exchange, do they have a name for this exchange problem? They call
we're just going to call it exchange
Humanity. No, it's Hafnium. Hafnium.
Oh, yeah, no, they want to give it a name that doesn't have exchange in the title. But let me tell you something. The problem there.
It's an exchange server problem.
Yeah.
It is.
40 days, and the worst news came yesterday. Paul, oh boy, we just lost Mary Jo.
We're both having cat-related emergencies.
Cat issues.
Yep.
The worst news was yesterday. Steve Gibson shared this, that Microsoft apparently, and they admit it, knew about it for at least 6 weeks. Well, since early January.
I thought it was even longer than that, a couple of months. But yeah, they do this a lot. Unfortunately,
I stood up to defend them, saying maybe the fix, we assume that, they'll fix it like that, but maybe it wasn't that obvious or that easy. And they certainly want to test it before they roll it out.
The fix is kind of complicated by my understanding. I'm not an exchange administrator, but regardless, I think Microsoft often does this. I can't explain why. It probably has something to do with difficulty / just the aggravation of having to install something like this versus risk. And, a couple of months ago, maybe it didn't seem that serious.
Yeah.
100,000 organizations later, or whatever the number is, maybe it's serious. Maybe it's serious.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's bad.
So
I have a good resource for people, though. If you want to know the latest from them, and they keep updating this page, go to techcommunity.microsoft.com and look for the Exchange Team blog. And they have this cheat sheet page there about the Exchange Server security updates, and they're literally updating it every day with new guidance, new patches, new resources. It's really
e-card apologies.
Yeah.
We're sorry, so sorry.
All your questions are there. Everything about what if I have an on-premises Exchange server? Which server should I update first? It's definitely a good resource.
The big takeaway, though, is even if you've done this and patched it, the bad guys, because it was a 0 day, may already be in there. So the patching doesn't eliminate anybody who's already wandering about. So
a lot of security researchers are basically saying if you have an Exchange server, just assume you've been compromised and proceed from there.
Yeah, that's what Brian Krebs said or quoted.
Yep. Do you know, I don't know, you guys may know this guy, Ryan Narain, Naraine. He's a security expert. He worked at one point for ZDNet and then Kaspersky and all. He's got a tweet pinned that says, in 20 plus years of writing about hackers and tracking advanced threats, I've never seen this volume of in the wild 0 day exploitation as this year.
No, between Soloragate and Hafnium, it hasn't been a good 2021, and we're only in March.
I know we're in early March. I'm and what's going to happen?
Well, at least we're all traveling again, am I right?
Yeah.
Marcus Hutchins tweeted just minutes ago, I've confirmed there's a public proof of concept floating around for the full RCE exploit chain. It has a couple of bugs, but with some fixes, I was able to get shell on my test box. So it's anybody who wants to can try this out at home.
If you listen, maybe you're out of a job, you have extra time, looking for a challenge,
a hobby.
Do we know how many of the servers have been patched? I mean, this has been such a loud.
You're never going to be able to find that number.
No.
That's the unfortunate reality of on-prem.
Nope.
Yeah. By the way, every time a cloud service goes down, and I mean every time, Chicken Littles come out of the woodwork. This is why I don't have my data in the cloud, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Is there a corresponding reaction to on-prem
This is why I'm in the cloud.
Exactly. This is why everything's in the cloud.
Presumably, if you'd let Microsoft do your Exchange serving, you'd
be okay.
You'd be okay, right?
Well, here's the problem. So, all joking aside, the problem with this is I bet a lot of these things are not full on-prem setups. I bet a lot of these are hybrid setups. Yeah. A lot of these companies have that requirement, whether it's legal, regulatory, whatever. And this is a concern. I mean, this is the architecture that Microsoft has, where you can have part of it in their cloud and have part of it in your own infrastructure. So
I read, now maybe you guys know better, understand, but I should ask Steve Gibson this. I read that Outlook Web Access this includes that.
I think Outlook Web Access might be one of the vectors for getting in.
So that
Outlook
is
Web
part of
Access
Exchange
is the front
Server.
end. It's the web-based front end of Exchange, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So many companies. Every company I've ever worked for, after Ziff Davis, because they use Lotus. Lotus Notes.
Probably still do.
But and you know what? We never had this problem. But
well, you're right.
Probably, maybe we don't know. Maybe we never knew. But subsequent to that, everybody's used Outlook Web Access. That's just like universal. The radio company that I work for does. Oh boy, is this a bummer, man. If you'll forgive me the argot of my youth.
It's terrible, but we have this VR aquarium thing we can play with. So,
No, back to your point, though, Paul. I have seen people on Twitter saying, I was a little unsure about going to Exchange Online and Microsoft 365, but boy, am I glad I did. Like I've seen more than.
I'm glad to hear that because I don't like the knee-jerk reaction thing.
I know.
And it's when Xbox went down one night for 5 hours on a Thursday a couple weeks ago, and everyone's freaking out, blah blah blah, and it's like, guys, Xbox hasn't been down since when the pandemic started. Like, for this service to have maintained itself during one of the literally the heaviest usage in history, should be applauded. And so, one part of a day of outage is like, come on. All of the benefits of the cloud are not erased because one service goes down for a little while on one day or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like people are just like they're waiting. They can't wait for this kind of thing, so they can be like, see.
I think they want somebody to blame, right? Like if it's an unpopular decision or somebody else said, we're going to the cloud. Yeah, see, that guy said we're going to the cloud, right?
Well, okay, but when your on-prem server gets hacked, who's to blame then? You.
I know, right?
I don't know.
I wonder if Microsoft patched its
own.
I guess most people use Exchange in the cloud actually are not Microsoft customers. They're doing it usually with a third party, right? Or does I'm not sure.
Both.
Actually, as the world moves to Microsoft 365, technically
it's going to be Microsoft.
They're Microsoft customers, right?
So I wonder if Microsoft patched those guys before they announced. I bet you they did.
Well, these are specifically the on-prem Exchange servers, so presumably, I don't know for sure. I hate to say something like this definitively, but I believe it's literally just the on-prem.
Just
servers,
the on-prem.
Huh.
I wonder what you're doing differently if you're hosting for somebody.
Well, for a Microsoft 365, they don't ever call this Exchange server right up in the cloud, even though it is, you're getting Exchange services, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
The world will never know.
Well, the world will know eventually. Like Microsoft's pretty good about talking about it after the fact, but we're not going to really find out everything until it's all said and done.